Dolphins, welcome to another episode of Podcast and Regulation. I'm your host, RP, and today is Wednesday, January 21st, first new episode of the year, of the season. We didn't really tie the loose ends from last year looking at the final bet sheet, but I'll get to that. But I kind of wanted to start this year, not even just with the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour of last week. This week we have all three going, those two leagues plus the LPGA. So I really wanted to get into that and start off strong with probably taking bets across the board, a little bit of everything. As always, please follow me on Twitter and Instagram at Pod and Regulation, or follow the Facebook fan page, Podcast and Regulation. And then if you dare reach out through email, it is podcastandregulation@gmail.com. So for starters, I hope everyone had an absolute amazing, fantastic end of the year between Thanksgiving and Christmas and the New Year. Hopefully you made some money if you were throwing some cash down between all the football games, basketball games, and kind of the end of year wrap up of some of the golf tournaments. There weren't so many, which is why I pretty much went quiet, went silent. I did get the last bit of bets in for the RSM Classic for the PGA Tour and the CME Group. I never really got to put that episode out for the preview, but you did. If you are following me, you saw it on the bet sheet, you saw it on the fan page, and hopefully you followed along because it did end up being a win. Just ended up, I guess, kind of differing for everyone based on how much you put on each of these players and what types of scenarios obviously you ended up betting on as well. So kind of looking at the recap of those two tournaments, I had a total of $120 flat between all of the entire bet sheet. And overall, we won $22.62. So let's see how we got there. In regards to the CME Group Tour Championship, we had 3 picks in the top 10. Andrea Lee for $6.25. She was a plus 320. Minjee Lee at $8.50 for a plus 135 potential payout. And Miyu Yamashita for a $5.75 bet at plus 155. All of those did miss. The biggest disappointment probably was Minjee Lee with her third and fourth round being 70 and 71 after she had gone sub 70 for the first 2 rounds. One more would have gotten us in there, but unfortunately, that's kind of how it ended up for us. Now, we did hit one in the top 5. So top 5 players we had taken were Mao Saigo at $11.50 for plus 575. She finished 19th. Gina Thitical, who won it outright. It was a $9 bet for a plus 155. That came back to us for $22.95. Rio Takeda, $7.50 for plus 750. Finished T13. And Jin Hee-im at $5.75 for a plus 1100. She got pretty close too, based on at least projection and a top 5 finish. She finishes T13. So I'd say all really close, with the exception of Miyu Yamashita, who finishes T36. But overall, kind of encouraged with how they all ended. Just didn't quite make it in terms of good enough for us to take home some extra cash. And for anyone wondering, my shaky voice and somewhat hesitant to try to get going on any sort of rants. I was sick like 5 weeks ago, but this lingering cough has been just kind of sticking around. Either way, I'm getting over it. But if you are wondering why I do sound different, a little congested, a little bit of that post-nasal, and it will interrupt me. So forgive me if you do hear a little bit of the cuts and a few of the pauses as we go through these segments. And then for round 1 bets, we had the 2-ball of Nasa Hataoka versus Miyu Yamashita. We took Miyu Yamashita. That was a miss. Now, we did hit the Lynn Grant versus Celine Boutier. Lynn Grant, I had thrown $6.50 on her. She was a minus 120. That day 1, she finishes at a 72. Celine Boutier finished at 73, so the payout was $11.92. And the big one, we finished on a really good note in terms of kind of prop bets. It was Gabby Lopez versus Natalia Guseva. Took them as a tie. They both finished at 69 for day 1. And of course, the standard payout is is plus 1,600. So with the $4.50 bet, we did return $76.50. So big way to salvage some of the losses and some of the close calls from top 5s and top 10 misses. And of course, kind of making a little bit of a recovery from missing all the, what was this, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 bets for first round leaders. They were only $3, but none of them hit. And that was Minji Lee, Jinu Thirikong, Mao Saigo, Ryo Takeda, Minami Katsu, and Jinhee Im. Now, as for the RSM Classic, which was a late tournament, but it did have a good mix and match of PGA Tour players as well as DP World Tour players, and of course some sponsored exemptions. Only took one pick in the top 30, and that was Adrian Dumont-Deshessart. Had an overall good year, but lots of ups and downs. Pretty volatile in terms of results and some of the statistics, but I was cheering for him. Thought top 30 would be kind of a safe spot for him, especially towards the end of the year. But it was only 550 in terms of the bets. It was plus 200, but he missed as a cut outright. The two that I did end up hitting, first one was a top 20 pick with Rico Hoey, $4.50. He finished his T7 at a plus 150 payout, so $11.25 coming back. And then one in the top 10, 2 picks in the top 10, one of them did hit. It was JT Poston, so Postman got us with a $5 bet of plus 300. He finished his T7, so it was a $20 comeback. And then Thorbjorn Olesen for $4 at plus 400. He also, like Adrian, missed the cut. And then a little bit of a disappointment for Harris English. I know he was a plus 550, which is why I bet $9.25 on him, but I don't know why. I felt like, not this was his tournament to lose or anything like that, but between the current status of his game and where he was kind of playing, I thought it'd be enough to overtake quite a few for a good top solid 5 finish. That didn't happen. He finished his T47. So, kind of recapping the prices here. On the table was $120 even. We returned $142.62. So that was overall a win of $22.62. Add that to our running total, and the end of the year final tally was $1,388.48. Like I said, for this season, I'm not going to be keeping records. That's kind of dumb because it just really proved my point that you can have a losing week in terms of record, but winning with the money and the odds that come back when it comes to golf and betting on any type of golf. So that being said, I will just carry on the current tab. So we will enter the 2026 season at $1,388.48. So good starting point. I know an odd number, but we'll definitely keep that in the top corner and keep note of that all year long, at least when we finally start to compare it to the end of this season. Now, I've been doing this for about 3 years now, I think. Yeah, inconsistently, but about 3 years, and you all know the story of how this kind of came about. I shouldn't have been doing this solo, but here I am, mainly because it's a passion. I absolutely can say that I don't just like doing it. I love doing it. It's a lot of work being a one-man show, having to host, having to edit and put everything together, having to master everything, and obviously do my own research. But as always, with this not being something that really pays my bills, it's a passion. I'll continue to do it, and hopefully you continue along with the ride. I get a lot of good feedback between email and some comments or some DMs even. So between the actual followers we have and some of the comments that get put in, I truly very much appreciate the support and any interaction that you have sent my way. I do my best to comment or reply back, but overall, I really just wanted to reiterate, anyone who hasn't even commented or really liked anything but continues to download a lot of the episodes, a lot of people who have different venues from Spotify and iTunes and all that, and your downloads certainly help. Again, doing this out of pure hobby and something I love doing, so it's fun to share. And while I'm doing all the user research for myself when I bet, I figure I might as well pass it along, and so far it's been pretty well received over the last few years. So I felt like it was kind of necessary to reset, tell you that, one, not a professional gambler. I certainly have had some good luck and good streaks, but I've also had my downs. So take everything from stats to feels and, what I'm feeling from my gut with a grain of salt. But hopefully overall you've been winning too, whether you've ended up fading me or placing the same bets as me. So just a big thank you there. So let's tackle this first problem that I just set up for myself, which I'm going to continue anyway. I was printing out all the schedules for all four leagues, because I'm including Live. The only ones I don't really get to pull out were Korn Ferry and the collegiate schedule, but that comes later anyway. This week is the American Express, so that is going on starting tomorrow, so I will do my normal coverage of that. And then in terms of the DP World Tour, it is the Hero Dubai Classic that is going to start this evening. I believe it's like 8 o'clock my time, Colorado time, so Mountain, it should be about 8:05 are the first tee times. And where I made my biggest mistake of overall so far was I do have it scouted. I have players ready to go for the LPGA, but the Hilton Grand Tournament, the Hilton Grand Vacation Tournament of Champions doesn't take place until next week. So if you're familiar, they usually kick off with this one, and it is everyone invited from being in the winner's circle from last season. So a little bit of a hiccup there for me, but either way, I was ready for the other two, so we'll continue with those, and I'll just save my analysis and probably fades and faves for the Hilton Grand Tours or the Hilton Grand Vacations tournament. So yeah, let's start off with the PGA tournament, the American Express. So as per the usual, this time of year, you absolutely can build a little bit off of how players ended the last season, but really the bigger indicator is going to be probably for the first two, but the Century was certainly canceled, and then last week was the Sony. So not too many stats to go off just for 1 year, but aside from the superstars, you can pretty much try to gauge some of the guys who did play well last week. So looking at a guy like Chris Gotterup, let's see if he's even partaking in this week. I'm not even sure about where he stands with that, and if he's even going to be in this lineup. Yeah, so some guys who even played well last week will not be participating in this tournament, which is fine. But overall, with something like the American Express, it's very easy to go back to the well this early in the season, knowing a lot of these players just have an affinity for this golf course beginning of the year. It's a lot easier to lean on people who are familiar with the course, play well at a course, as well as have the big game to back it up. I mean, how many people this week are going to be looking at Patrick Cantlay or Scotty Scheffler? Really easy ones to put in there. But a guy who played well last week and also had some moments last year is a guy like Harry Hall. I think he finished 6th last week, and he's somebody that I probably could see in one of my DFS lineups or taking as some sort of sleeper within the top 10 or top 30. I don't know if with all these bigger names coming for this tournament, if he has enough to kick himself into the top 10, but top 20 I think would be fairly manageable for a guy like Harry Hall. And you also have guys like Ludwig Oberg and Sam Burns, who probably will continue to be the meat and potatoes of a lot of lineups where they're not the top dog. They're not having to pay for a Cantlay or a Scotty. Ben Griffin, another one that could make a little noise, maybe not necessarily win it, but certainly put up the good stats, and not only that, but make the cut and continue to earn you points throughout the weekend on into the final day. One guy I am looking forward to, if he can kind of find that form from 2 to 3 years ago, is Will Zalatoris. He certainly showed flashes of him being him again, but I think this year is going to be more telling. Can he obviously stay away from injuries? Can he make that full comeback? Is he good to go with the kind of swing he's learned to develop now after having to have dealt with that injury? But I don't know. The game overall for him, aside from putting for the most part, really solid. So looking forward to 2026 and seeing how it treats Zalatoris here. So let's kick it off with just the faves and fades list. It's pretty short, mainly because I can't really gauge too much again on past performance when from December until now has been inconsistent. Everyone's working on their games, but you don't really see them up close. You don't know where they're at. But overall, I think the faves more than justifiable in some of these. So Patrick Cantlay, he actually may be one that I take as on a full-out winner, or at least like a top 3 or top 5 bet. Ludvig Åberg is just proving to be a model of consistency, almost for me, like what Xander was prior to his injury last year. The 3 years of just knowing what you get out of Xander, you feel like you get the same out of Ludvig Åberg. Sam Burns, he is someone interesting that is constantly in the top 25, but he hasn't won a stroke play in something like 3 years. And that's not my stats. I saw it somewhere else, which I couldn't really believe. Not that I couldn't believe it, but it was kind of shocking. You know, guy who's constantly in the top 25, the OWGR, you'd feel like would win a couple times a year. And he's really just a top 25 machine, a top 10 machine. And that's kind of how he gets there. It's just based on those averages. Solid golfer, super consistent. But yeah, it was a surprising stat that I had noticed on someone else's remarks. Davis Thompson, definitely looking at him this week. I don't know where he'll fall in the cost for DFS, but it'll be interesting to try to see if I can fit him in anywhere. Shouldn't be somebody that's too expensive, but you won't find him on the cheap with some of the bigger names coming in, but he still will probably make enough noise or will be on enough radars that he won't be anywhere near like probably halfway. I think he'll be well above that halfway point for cost when it comes to daily fantasy. And then I love JT Poston here. For 3 straight years, he's been 12th or better. So with how he ended last year and his current love affinity status at this course, I'll take him one more time. Don't know where, but he's definitely in the favorite pile. Matthew Fitzpatrick won at the end of last year. Looks like he may have found something. And overall, looks like he's ready to kind of cross that bridge and come back into the play and the style that we've known him for a while. He had quite a few hiccups and some ups and downs last year that were unexpected. Trust me, you probably remember me taking him a few times last year and him completely missing a top 20 and finishing in the 40s or 50s, and kind of ruins some of those parlays or the standard in which you see a Matthew Fitzpatrick. And to finish it off, Harry Hall. Little self-explanatory for him. Had a really good year. Most likely will build pretty well on it. And he's already started pretty hot with the T6 at the Sony last week. And for fades, I think a guy like Nick Taylor will play fairly well here, but I think he may cost too much coming into this for any sort of consideration for daily. So I think I have to put him out there and fade him this week. Brian Harman has had really good history here. The problem is the last 2 years, he's missed the cut. So when you have top 20s prior to that, I don't know if it's a decline or if it's just an uncomfortability when it comes to starting off the year, but now it looks like he's starting off a little slow. I could be wrong, but obviously the trend prior was something great and something you could count on. These last 2 years, don't think I can count on it, at least right now. We'll see how his starts to really kick off the year between now and probably another month or so. At least that's a time frame for where I'm putting my judgment on Brian Thompson. Russell Henley is one that I will fade only from a cost effectiveness. I feel like he's easily a top 25 pick here, but is he worth it based on where you can find him in your lineup and at what price? So just for that reason, I could easily take him in a top 30 for just outright stroke play and bets. But when it comes to adding him to a lineup, unless you can find him at a really good price, I think I might have to stay away from him and take that salary and either go really low with some players that I feel could outplay themselves and play them into a top 30 or top 20 even, while still gaining points throughout the weekend. And then the last but not least to finish off the fades is Bob McIntyre. I know he's looked pretty good. Last year his good was great, but I'd like to see, I know it's really just a flip of another month, but I'd like to see more of it. I think he is due for a good year overall, but I don't know if I'm all in this early on him, especially with just this being the second tournament of the season. So that's it for faves and fades. let me take a look here real quick. You may hear me pause and just finalize some of my picks. And yeah, we'll go from there. Alright, so official picks, we'll start off with the top 40. Will Zalatoris, had to take him. I'm really curious of where he's going to end up. I don't have any money down yet, but these are the ones that I will finalize, and you can check out how much I do end up betting on them on either Instagram or the Facebook page or on Twitter. Will Zalatoris in the top 40 is a plus 125. Minwoo Lee in the top 40 is a plus 105. And then I'm taking 2 in the top 30, Ludwig Åberg at minus 120, and Matthew Fitzpatrick at plus 120. My 2 top 20 picks are going to be Davis Thompson at plus 300, JT Poston at plus 300, and then top 10s, I'm taking Harry Hall at plus 375, and a fan favorite, he built off of last year, hopefully brings it into this new year's, Ricky Fowler at plus 650. Obviously with those odds, they're not really expecting too much from him, but it's not outrageous. We'll see. And then in the top 5, I'm taking Patrick Cantlay plus 600 and Sam Burns at plus 700. So that's what I'm going with top finishes. And then round 1 2-ball, we'll go with Aldrich Potgieter at minus 134 versus Joe Highsmith. And then we're taking Adrian Sadier, someone who I'm more familiar with on the DP World Tour, but the odds are in his favor, minus 115 versus Gordon Sargent. So that's all I'm putting down here. Pretty simple, pretty easy. Obviously, I'm not going to go through course preview or any of that, or weather. Maybe as we get deeper in the season, I'll go back to that, but more something I do with the DP World Tour and LPGA. You just can find the coverage and the weather anywhere for the PGA Tour, and part of the reason why I picked these guys was, there's not too much going on that I can see. This time of year, you kind of are used to a little bit of wind or precipitation, but right now, everything from calm winds to perfect weather from Thursday through Sunday, it looks good. So all my picks are strictly on player, I guess, conditions, but not weather conditions, just where they are in terms of their game. It's early in the season, but as you can see, some of these names I did take flyers on, but others are just the model of consistency. So we're going with that and not having to worry a lot about the elements or any elements at all. If anything, with the little bit of wind that is going to come through, it'll probably just dry out the course a bit. But obviously, everywhere you look and all the predictions that are being seen through different sites, weather is absolutely perfect for them. So they're ready to go, and hopefully we are too. So hopefully we make some money off this guy. And as for the Hero Dubai Desert Classic, just kick it off with the faves and fades. I'm going with Nacho Oliveira, Dan Hillier, Rory McIlroy, who I think could outright win this again, Laurie Cantor and David Puig being of LIV. Those guys can certainly make some noise, and I also, with these faves, feel like you can very much make a team out of a majority of these without breaking the bank when it comes to DFS. Still kicking around, don't know if I'm excuse me. Don't know if I'm going to join Splash Sports for the office pool this year or something with like Rick Rungood. Still figuring that out. Still early in the season, but I do have to make a move soon. So at least in terms of that, I may put a pick out there. I may not. It'll end up on one of the streams or all the streams, Twitter, Instagram, or the Facebook fan page. But that would show up there. I just don't know if I'm going to join this week and start burning picks or not. 100% I promise I will. I just don't know which venue or which league to join yet. And then with the fades, might be a little bit more of a hot take central. So you tell me. I am fading the defending champ Tyrrell Hatton. This one pains me. I am fading Viktor Hovland. Definitely a gut feeling with this one. I could be very wrong, but when I'm looking at players like Hovland, I don't know if he's going to be worth it going that high or just spreading out salary amongst like mid-cap guys, taking the best of the field kind of right above and below that median and that cutoff line. And then I'm also fading Thorbjorn Olesen. He's somebody that a lot of people are taking. If it's not Rory, you'll see them putting him possibly in the winner's circle this week. I was going to put Shane Lowry in here, but I'm not convinced either way of him yet. I know I bet on him at the end of last year, and it turned out well for the most part. But kind of early in the season. I'm just going to let that one slide, and I'm not going to put on my either list. So as you can hear my voice kind of fading in and out, it may be time to jump into the bets straight without, again, analyzing the course itself or the weather. From what I saw weather-wise, the first 2 days should be a little bit of a test. Some wind, maybe some rain coming in, but mostly the wind gusts. And then finishing off on Saturday, Sunday should be pretty easy. Not anything to contend with weather-wise, so it'll really just be building on what you could have done on Thursday and Friday. So again, we'll go with 2 apiece. Top 40, we're going Elvis Smiley at plus 110, Jacques Kreiswick at plus 165. Top 30, we'll go with Grant Forrest at plus 190, Hugo Coussaud at plus 240. And then entering the top 20s, we have David Puig at minus 120, Nacho Elvira at plus 320. And then top 10 and a winner. Top 10 is going to be Dan Hillier at plus 270, Rory McIlroy at minus 200, and also Rory with the enhanced win at plus 370. So that'll do it for this week's bets. Nice easy coverage. Didn't really get too in-depth, but for my voice and for my coughing, I'm pretty sure I'm saving you from having to listen to all that. And then as we add the LPGA for next week's tournament and everything that I prepped for that, we'll also start the on-the-clock segments and kind of get into a rhythm that way. But either way, good luck this evening, especially if you have any first-round bets with this DP World Tour. I may add one. I may add like a live bet through one of the streams. You'll be able to see that. But overall, these are going to be my bets. But I won't finalize how many units I'll be putting on each of these until later. But I just wanted to get this out. Wanted to start the new year off on a true Wednesday with a preview of what I thought was going to be 3 leagues. But at least you get the PGA Tour and the DP World Tour starting this evening and then on to tomorrow and through the weekend. Guys, once again, I appreciate the support. Thank you so much. This is Podcast and Regulation. I'm your host, RP. Check out the streams, Twitter, Instagram, at Pod and Regulation, the Facebook fan page, Podcast and Regulation, and again, reaching out through email, podcastandregulation@gmail.com. Guys, good luck, have fun, fade me, make the same picks. Hopefully we make some money either way. Take care, and I will see you next week.